We are not gonna die today.
I Know What You Did Last Summer is the latest horror flick to slash its way into theaters. The film is directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, and this is a film that I was very excited about when they first announced it, but I was also wondering, was this going to be a reboot to the franchise? Was it going to be a legacy sequel? And we didn't have to wait very long to find out that answer because they quickly announced that both Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt would be attached to this movie, making it a legacy sequel. And for those of you who don't know, a legacy sequel in the horror genre is where you're going to have a new cast of characters. They're going to be terrorized by something familiar from the past, but it's also not going to forget the events of the past. And bringing in those legacy characters like Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt, well, that's really going to play into those events from the past, basically making this a very long-awaited sequel to that original film. And so when I heard that, I got even more excited because I really do love that original 1997 I Know What You Did Last Summer film. So I went to see this movie yesterday. Let's do the review.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
So as I said at the beginning of this video, this is a legacy sequel to those events of that original 1997 film, where we are introduced to a new cast of characters, a new cast of young adults who are having fun on the 4th of July. And they decide, hey, you know what? Let's get in the car, let's drink a little, let's go for a drive. And one thing leads to another, and they end up sending somebody that they don't know off the cliff accidentally in their pickup truck. And while they feel bad about it, they're like, listen, this is going to ruin all of our lives. We've all been drinking and driving. This isn't going to be good for any of us. So just like in the events of that original 1997 film, they decide to cover it up, to walk away, to never talk about it again. And then we get to Southport 1 year later, where now we have a brand new psychopath fisherman that's hunting down these characters one by one, leaving them notes telling them, I know what you did last summer. That would normally be where I end the synopsis for this movie, but since this is a legacy sequel, let's check in with our legacy characters, and we are first introduced to Jennifer Love Hewitt's Julie James, who you now find out teaches at a university just outside of Southport, and she's pretty much said she's never planning to go back there again. And you find that in these legacy sequels, that's typically what happens in these movies. The final girl character from that original film has moved away, vowed to never go back, but of course something is going to draw her back in. And of course we're reintroduced to Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character of Ray, and Ray's actually still living in Southport. He has a business there, but Southport has changed over the past 30 years. This doesn't look anything like that original 1997 film because Southport has gone from being sort of a gritty little fishing town to being a big, thriving population of incredibly wealthy people, and all of the beachfront area has changed. They even go into some of the buildings that have completely changed their look, and actually that kind of worked for me because, yeah, it would change over the course of 30 years. If you did have a few investors come in that are like, hey, we want to make this beautiful beachfront area even more beautiful, bring in people that are wealthy, have them dock their boats there. So the whole landscape has started to change around Ray, who seems to be a bit stuck in 1997. That is the best synopsis that I can give you for I Know What You Did Last Summer. If that sounds like a fun time at the theater, or if you're a big fan of this franchise, well, this movie is playing now, and I would recommend you go check this out on the biggest screen possible. Now, I am going to get to my positives and my negatives for I Know What You Did Last Summer, but before I do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Check out all the different content on my channel, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or even ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into my positives and my negatives for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Jumping right into my positives, my first positive for this movie is going to be those bloody slasher moments that we've come to expect out of a film like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Listen, there's nothing groundbreaking in the kills in this film. Some of them are kind of standard and they're not even gory, but when you do get to those gory kills, it's exactly what I expected out of a film like this. You've got a psychopath fisherman running around wielding a hook, and so when that hook is used and you get to see that hook be used, oh, there's some pretty nasty, gory moments. So if you're in this film for ignore the gory kills, I think you'll enjoy what you're going to get. Again, go in with your expectations like, hey, this is an I Know What You Did Last Summer film. This isn't a Terrifier film. Like, there's not going to be any groundbreaking kills. You're not going to see something and be like, oh, I've never seen something like that before. But if you watch this movie and you're like, oh, I've kind of seen something like that before in this franchise, that's what you should expect, and that's what you get. So I put it in my positives because at least it gave me what I was expecting when it came to the kills. And my other positive for this movie is that this is a legacy sequel, and I think it delivers on being a legacy sequel. And what I mean by that is that this is a movie for new fans, and it's a movie for old fans. For people that really love that 1997 film, you're going to have a lot of that flavor throughout this film. You're going to get a couple of those legacy sequel. There's going to be something for you to enjoy. But for people who are newer to this franchise, maybe this is their first outing into the I Know What You Did Last Summer universe, well, it's going to be something new for them. It's going to give you new characters, new people to latch onto, and a new psychopath fisherman. So again, it blends that 1997 film with this 2025 film very well, and that is the whole job of a legacy sequel. Unfortunately, though, that's where we get into our negatives for this movie, and my first negative for this movie is that the story feels played out and it feels stale. Basically, you do get new events, new characters, but all of it feels a lot like stuff we've seen in the past. Like, they go on the same road that those original characters from that original movie go on, and they do something similar, not identical, they do switch it up a little bit, but they do something similar that leads to someone dying, and then that someone dying kicks off an event 1 year later where a new killer is handing out notes saying, I know what you did last summer, and then coming after them one by one. So again, there's no new ground there with the story. I expected that. To be clear, that's what I expected out of this movie. I expected them to set the film up very similar to that original movie, again, to blend that 1997 film with that 2025 film. And they did that, but then I expected something a little bit more, and we never got it. It never gave me a little bit more to that story. Yeah, they do certain things with some characters in this movie that maybe moves their character development along, whether they're legacy characters or they're new characters, but it never really branches out on the story itself. It all feels like we've been there, done that. My next negative for this movie has to do with the twist reveal of who the killer is in this film. Now, don't worry, this is a spoiler-free review. I won't be spoiling anything for you guys, but when you get to that twist reveal, when the hat is removed, the coat comes off, and you see the killer, it was like, oh, I kind of saw that coming from a mile away. And they also kind of spoil it in the movie directly before that moment. There's a moment with a bunch of cops who are at a scene, and they look at this poster, and they're like, wait a minute, if this, and they point at that character, is this, and then in the next scene, it's revealed who the killer is. And I'm like, well, if I didn't know before that scene, I definitely know it now. And then the movie tries to give you another twist, another quick reveal, and you're supposed to be completely blown away by that. But even that moment was completely spoiled by something that was said earlier on in the movie by Jennifer Love Hewitt's character. They say something about people that have gone through traumatic events and how that can change them forever. And so when you get to the second reveal of the film, you're like, ah, nope, you spoiled that already too in the opening moments of this movie. So none of the twist reveals for this worked, and that's too bad, because this is a film much like Scream, where you've got somebody going around killing people out of vengeance, but you don't know that vengeance reason. I mean, you know someone died, but you don't know their motives for wanting to kill those people. And so when you get to the end of this movie and those reveals are made, you're just kind of like, oh, well, no, I saw both of these coming. Got anything else for me? No? Okay. The next negative is that you have a few people that are considered to be suspects in this film that don't have a lot of screen time, and that takes away from you actually considering them as suspects. For instance, in this film, there's a guy who plays a pastor, and his character, I swear to you, is never mentioned in this movie until they need to decide, hey, we need to give the audience a suspect, so let's just give him one. And so they go to his church, and he shows up, and he's all curious about why someone's been in his study, which, yeah, that's kind of fair for that guy. Like, why was somebody rummaging through his stuff? But anyway, it gives him this creepy moment, and you're like, oh, maybe this guy is the killer. But it's so obvious that they want to throw you off the scent of who the killer is in this movie that they just throw you this character, and they're like, aha, this could be the guy. And you're like, no, it can't. Nope, that's not going to be it. You're trying to throw me off. I see what you're doing here. And so again, it's just another character they kind of throw at you to make you believe maybe this person is doing it. And to be clear, it's not just this pastor. They do it a couple of times throughout this film where there's a character that pops up for a couple of scenes, and they're like, it could be this person that you've never heard of. And then, of course, it's not that person. And you're like, Yeah, of course. And my final negative for this movie is something that I didn't know if I wanted to go into in my review, but they hit you over the head with it so many times in the film that I couldn't leave it out of my review and I couldn't leave it out of my negatives. And that is the extreme final girl narrative. Listen, I completely understand that horror films have a final girl, and I love that about horror films. I don't have a problem with it. There's always one girl, maybe it's somebody you expect, maybe it's somebody you don't expect, who turns out to be this phenomenal final girl, and you have a great time with the movie. Again, no issues with that on my end at all. But in this film, if you are a female, whether you're a legacy character or you're a new character, you can have so many things happen to you, and 99% of them are going to live, whether they're good characters or bad characters. I'm not trying to spoil anything here, but you have a character that gets hit in the gut with a hook, sent overboard on a ship, and that person survives. And then you have another character who's a male who gets hit in the gut on land with police very close by who dies instantly. And it just very much so felt like the director of this film was like, no, all the females have to survive. It's the men that need to die. And to further this point a little bit more, at one point, Jennifer Love Hewitt's character is having a moment with another character, and she's drinking a cup of tea in this mug, and it says something about down with the patriarchy. And it's just like very much so that the director of this film or the writers of this film, or maybe a combination of both of them, had an agenda where they were like, not only do we want to say down with men, but we also want to show how much more resilient women are to men. I'm sorry, but hook stabs shouldn't have a preference on male or female. It just doesn't make sense. And this isn't a topic I typically would go into in my reviews, but again, I just felt like they were hitting me over the head over and over and over with down with the patriarchy and women are better, or just the way that they decided to map out the kills in this film. And by the end of the film, you've got so many of the females from this film that make it to the end, and you're just kind of like, it's improbable at this point, and you're clearly trying to send a message. Overall, did I enjoy this movie? Well, I enjoyed it for what it was. I went in with pretty low expectations, and I feel like those expectations were at least met. There were some character arcs that they made with some of the legacy characters that I actually enjoyed, but ultimately, I wish they hadn't made this a legacy sequel. I wish they had just rebooted this franchise with a new cast of characters and felt like they were trying to give us something fresh, something new, something unique, but instead it feels like they go back to the old playbook from 1997. They even almost mirror what happens in the opening moments of that film with this film, so it ends up feeling kind of cheap. Would I recommend this movie to people? I'd say if you're a massive fan of this franchise or of that original movie, or maybe you're a massive fan of Freddie Prinze Jr. or Jennifer Love Hewitt, then yeah, I would recommend you go check this movie out in theaters. Otherwise, I'd wait for this one on streaming. I'm not saying it's not worth at least checking out, but it wasn't great, and it's not going to be very high up on my list by the end of the year. But guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Have you guys had a chance to see this film yet? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know your thoughts on it. Maybe we agree or disagree. Maybe you saw some things that I didn't in this movie, or maybe you really didn't like this movie where my expectations were at least met on a very low level. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my I Know What You Did Last Summer review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it. I don't love that I'm in a hotel room for this, but it is what it is. I'll be back at my normal setting very soon. But in the meantime, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my horror movie reviews right there, and I've got all of my best and worst of 2025 right there.